That was Scatter Me, the opening track on Great Aspirations, the new EP by TC&I. TC&I is a collaboration featuring Colin Moulding and Terry Chambers, respectively former bass player and drummer with XTC, and I'm very pleased and indeed honoured to have Colin live on the phone. Good evening, Colin.
Good evening, Ian. Nice to be here.
Colin, first of all, can you sort of tell us how the TC&I project came about, how the TC&I project started?
Well, I had a few songs kicking about, and the XTC had broken up or drifted into the ether, and so I took on a few sessions and for about 5 years, and then started to write some songs. So and then this seemed to coincide with Terry Chambers coming back into the country after 34 years.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, this should happen, I asked myself, but he'd been having some personal problems and decided to come back to England to live and to stay, you know. So I heard about it, and we went out for a drink, and as most plans are made in pubs, you know, I said, did you fancy having a go at playing some of these songs? So he said, yeah, I'd love to have a go. And so we started kicking them around, and before we knew it, we had an outfit, you know.
Yeah.
And so we started to record them over at my place, and Terry would appear at my door at 9 o'clock every morning. Great work ethic still. So we engineer and record them ourselves, and had this nice gentleman called Stuart Rowe to mix them, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not sound engineers, but we kind of have got some idea, but not the whole picture, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
So we recorded it ourselves, and had a guardian angel in Stuart Rowe, really, and so there you have it.
Yeah. What inspired you to finally want to write and record some new material? What was the one sort of thing that made you want to do it again?
I was quite disillusioned when the band broke up. You know, it's a big part of my life for over 30 years, and you think, Christ, what now? You know.
Yeah.
So I think I just watched TV for 2 years. You know, and it's like coming down after an almighty hangover. You know.
Yeah.
Going through some sort of divorce or something.
Yeah.
So I just wanted. Well, after a while, I thought, well, I can't play sessions forever, and it would be nice to try and get back into it. You know, it's just a cyclical thing. I think you come around to liking it again. You know.
Mm. Yeah.
So the idea started to come. So I thought, well, do a record of my own. That was the thing to start with. And then Terry came into the country, and it was then that the whole project took on a more solid purpose, you know.
Yeah. How was it playing with Terry after such a long period apart, you know, 34, 35 years? How was it?
We were a bit rusty to start with, I think, you know, but we soon got into it. And the thing is that Terry and I kind of started when we were about 16 playing together, you know. So it's been a long association. We were born in the same town, within a mile of each other, and within a month of each other, I think, in the same year. So there must be some sort of synchronicity there. I don't know.
Yeah.
The same sort of thing that identical twins have, I think, you know.
Yeah.
And we got into it eventually.
Yeah. When Terry left XTC, you made records with a number of very fine session drummers such as Dave Mattox, Prairie Prince, Pat, Chuck Sabo, Pete Phipps. How was it different, if indeed it was different, playing with these guys compared to playing with Terry? And did you have to change the way that you played?
No, I don't think so. Well, we used to... well, by that time, we'd come off the road, so this was just when we made records, you know. So I used to put the bass on last on XTC records. It was something that we'd gotten into, that we'd always do the bass last.
Right.
So we kicked the song about a little bit with the various drummers, but I was able to kind of ruminate on their parts and fit in afterwards, more or less. So I had a commanding aerial view of the whole thing, you know.
Yeah.
So I was able to do what was needed at the end, you know.
Right. Is that, in your experience, something kind of unique to yourself, or is it something that a lot of bass players do?
I don't know.
Right.
You'd have to ask them, I think. But I've always done it to put the bass on last. It's a privilege, because you get to know what everybody's done, and you can fit in accordingly, you know. So it's a very privileged position to be in, really.
Right.
You have the advantage, you know.
Yeah. The song Scatter Me, and I'm thinking also of Dying and In Loving Memory of a Name, songs that you've written. Is death and mortality something that sort of you're particularly fascinated by?
No, I'm always running away from it, you know.
It's best way.
Yes, it's you know it's going to happen, but you don't want to be around when it does, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So no, Scatter Me is kind of more kind of. We had a few bereavements in the family. We lost the dogs.
Yeah.
Carol's mum died as well recently, you know. So, you know, it's the subconscious is a funny old thing, isn't it?
Yeah,
I
sure.
suppose all this talk of ashes and that must have sunken in somewhere, you know, and came out as Scatter Me, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I wouldn't, you know, that's the only connection I can think that it came from, you know.
Yeah,
I
sure.
don't have any other explanation, really. But no, I haven't really got a fascination for death, you know.
It's been suggested that one of the tracks on the EP, Comrades of Pop, is a dig at your time in XTC. I mean, can you sort of set the record straight about that, Colin? I mean,
I will.
It doesn't sound like something that you would would do, really.
No, not me.
That's what I thought.
Well, no, it's just, everybody thought, well, he must be talking about Andy and must be very disgruntled or something. It's not that at all. It's just, you know, when you're at the tail end of the industry, I mean, Christ, I'm in my 60s now, so it's kind of, you know, it's just passing on the baton to all the young popsters coming into the industry, really.
Yeah.
And saying, you know, steer clear of the money men because they'll make mincemeat out of you, you know.
Yeah.
And just a brief explanation of how things generally turn out with bands and how to steer a safer course, you know. It's just me passing on the baton, you know.
Yeah, passing on the sort of your experiences.
Yeah. I just thought, well, that's never been done, you know, in a kind of a speaking song. I think poetry has been done with music before. I think John Betjeman did it quite well, but I thought, well, they haven't done it about the pop industry itself, you know. So I thought, well, that's never been done before, so that might be a, you know, good thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, do you think it's worse now for young bands, or do you think it's the same, or, you know?
Well, I think the whole industry has changed, you know, what with digital recording, and you know, back in the old days, they used to give you a second chance, you know.
Yeah.
It was called artist development.
Quite.
And you make a couple of albums, and if they didn't do all that well, then you try and make a better one, you know. But nowadays they don't give you a second chance, you know. If you don't have any success with your first record, you're generally out, you know. It's just they don't have that vision anymore, I don't think.
Yeah, of course. Do you and Terry have any plans to work together in the future? Have you got anything else lined up, you and he?
Well, we said we wouldn't, you know, because we self-financed the whole thing, we said, well, we can do what we want. We don't have to do the whole kind of, you know, album tour, you know, this kind of thing. We just said, well, we'll just do it for fun then, you know. We'll make an EP and then we'll see what happens afterwards. So we really don't know what we're going to do now anyway.
Yeah.
You know, so we have the luxury to do that, you see, because we don't have any financial pressure from outside sources, you know.
Mm.
So we can do what we want.
Yeah.
So we don't know. We don't know what we're going to do. We might play some shows, you know. But or we might make another record. Depends if the songs come, you know.
Yes. Yeah. It's been very well received, the EP, hasn't it?
It has. We're shocked, really.
Yeah.
We didn't realise that, you know, that it would be as well received as it has.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's all very gratifying, really.
It's brilliant. Moving on, Colin, can you tell us how you first became interested in music and how you kind of, you know, started playing guitar and who you were listening to as a younger man or a boy?
Oh, it's just general pop stuff to begin with. Well, even before that, I suppose hymns at school. Hymns at school went in quite deep, I think, and used to sing hymns in assembly.
Right.
You become aware of tunes, you know, and, you know, tunes like I Vow to Thee, My Country, or, you know, or Christmas carols in the bleak midwinter, all this kind of thing. It goes in quite deep, I think, you know. And then you start listening to chart stuff when you get a little bit older and buying your own records, you know. I remember seeing the Beatles at Shea Stadium and seeing all the girls screaming at them, you know. I thought, maybe that looks a good job, you know.
Did it never happen to you, that then?
Yeah. No. It's usually lads wanting to find out what the chords are to Rhodes Girl the Grove, you know.
Yeah, it's not quite the same.
No, not quite the same, no. But, you know, yeah, it looked a good job. And then started getting into Led Zeppelin as a teenager and stuff. And, you know, picked up the bass and thought, oh, I could play a few of these riffs. You know, they seem quite easy. And then you sort of learn your instrument. And, I mean, at that age, that's all you want to do is be good at playing and be good at your instrument, you know.
Yeah.
And then you start thinking, could I possibly write a song? Well, that would be all too much if I could, you know.
Yeah.
So one thing leads to another, you know. You want to better yourself all the time. So, and then, yeah, so that's how it works, really.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of my listeners won't know how XTC came about, but would you like to just tell us sort of briefly how you got together with Andy and kind of XTC started?
Well, there were basically two factions in the band. It was me and Terry.
Yes.
Who I'd gotten together, although I met in a pub, and we started playing together with this other guy called Steve Phillips. We were playing with a three-piece. We didn't do any gigs. And then I knew Andy from school. Yeah, we actually went to the same school together, and then I met him in the local music shop, Kempster's Music Shop in Swindon, and he said, "Oh, pick up a bass and we'll have a little jam." So we had a little jam in the music store, you know.
Yeah.
The proprietor wasn't all that pleased because, you know, you get a bit panicky when you're taking Les Pauls off the wall and start plugging them in, you know. So I knew Andy and I knew Terry, so I guess I was the bridge, you know, between the two factions of the band. And Andy was playing with a guitar player called Dave Cartner, and he'd already got a band going called Star Park, and but he wasn't too pleased with the way things are going. And I said, well, I know a drummer who's, you know, really good and more of a straight-ahead kind of approach. And so he said, well, arrange a rehearsal. So my old chap was caretaker of a local school, and he said, well, why don't you rehearse in one of the mobile classrooms? So we rigged up a rehearsal where both factions came together, and that was it. XTC were born. Well, we weren't XTC at the time, but that was the two factions coming together, you know.
Yeah. Was that Helium Kids, was it?
Star Park to begin
Star
with.
Park, yeah.
We retained the name that Andy already had, and then we became the Helium Kids. And I think we became the Snakes for a while.
That's a great name for a band. The Snakes,
yeah. And eventually, about 75, we became XTC, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so usual stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Can we talk a bit about your songwriting, Colin? In my opinion, your songs are some of the best on the XTC albums: Grass, Sacrificial Bonfire, Vanishing Girl on the Duke's album, or Sonic Sunspots. How do you think your songwriting has evolved over the years?
Well, I think you find your own style. I think in the beginning, I think I was kind of. I wrote. See, Andy was the original writer in the band. He was the only writer at one point.
Yeah.
And after a while, I think one of the roadies said to me, "Oh, you ought to start writing, Colin. Or you'll miss out." I said, "Well, I'll So I tried it, and first these things that you write are never very good, And but I think I wrote to fit in with what Andy was writing as well, which is something that perhaps I shouldn't have done, and because you want to be accepted, I think I should have wrote from more what was inside of me rather than trying to fit in. But that's something that you fall into,
Yeah.
And I did that for the first two records, I think. But it wasn't until probably Barry left. See, bands are very funny things. When people leave and people come into the fray, there's a kind of a change in everybody's thinking. It's very subtle, but it seemed when Barry left, it seemed to sort of trigger something off in me, and I thought I could sort of write for who I was, and what I had to offer, what I thought was true, So, and then Nigel came up, and it was a hit. So it was a kind of funny old thing, really, because Andy had been the writer, and I was just the usurper, I was the upstart,
Yeah.
who'd just written the hit for the band. So it was all very awkward, really.
Yeah, I think the thing that strikes me with your songs is the melody. I mean, they're often the most melodic songs on the album to my ears. So it kind of, you bring melody to the band, I guess.
Well, it's all those hymns I heard at school, you see. Yeah. That's where the melodies come from.
Yeah, good stuff. If we look back, I mean, you sort of said about the type of songs you were writing. I mean, if you look back on your time in XTC, do you have any regrets about anything that happened, or?
Not really, because I felt very privileged of being around people, intelligent people, and who could really play.
Yeah.
And all that rubs off on you, so you learn a lot,
Yeah.
And that brings you on enormously, I think, is being around handy people, And I was just very fortunate to have played with some very good players, and it brings you on immensely, I think. And so no, I don't have any regrets, I learned a lot,
Yeah. What did you do after XTC split?
Well, as I say, it's a big part of your life just disappears after over 30 years of playing together. You think, Christ, what now? It was like just coming down after a divorce. So I just mubbed about for a couple of years, watched telly and endless videos. And just kind of tried to come down off an enormous hangover. And then I got into this chap from Los Angeles rang me up, a chap called Billy Sherwood, and said, "Do you fancy playing some prog rock?" I said, "Prog rock? All right, well, all right." So he sent me some files over, and so I learned how to record myself and was able to do that two-way thing over the internet by sending musical files across the airwaves, and that's become a thing, really, for the next 5 years, that I was able to kind of play with other people, although never actually meeting them. I think I played on a song with Rick Wakeman, and I've never ever met him. So it's quite bizarre, really. Yeah. Billy's he was in-house producer at Cleopatra Records in Los Angeles, and knew a lot of musicians, and he was very keen on my voice and said, you should do some singing for us. And so it was paid work, and I thought, well, why not? So I did that for a good 5 years, and then TC arrived on the scene, you know.
Yes.
So that's what we've been up to. But yeah, that's. There's no official announcement that XTC had split up. It just kind of fizzled, you know.
Yeah.
Just kind of became more and more estranged, really.
Yeah.
That's Englishmen for you. They just cannot talk.
Yeah. I mean, as you say, it sort of fizzled rather than sort of officially ended. I mean...
Yes.
Yeah.
It just faded away.
Yeah. Does that... has that frustrated you, or is it just how it was?
I just think Englishmen do that, don't they? They just can't talk, so they just kind of... I better not speak to him then and tell him all about it, you know.
Just bottling it all up.
We bottle it up, don't we?
Yeah, that's the best way.
It's all right, you know. Ali and I still correspond, but I email. I haven't spoken to him for a good while now, but, you know, it's all right. It's what bands do. I mean, you can't go on forever, can you?
No.
So, you know, it just fades away, really.
Yeah. Well, it'd be lovely to have something else from the band, but I'm not going to ask the question that I guess you get asked a lot. So don't worry, I'm not going to ask that one.
Well, it's probably unlikely. They say you can never say never, but it's pretty unlikely, I would imagine.
Yeah.
You know, when you've been as long together as what we had, it's kind of little things mean a lot, you know.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I wish he wouldn't pick his nails like that, you know.
Oh, right. Well, when we're off mic, you can tell me more of these details.
Yeah, right.
Promise I won't say anything. What are you... I mean, have you got anything kind of planned for the next, 6 months or anything? Or are you just going to sort of see how you wake up some days and...
Well, we're just taking it kind of steady, really, you know, and doing a bit of press on this thing, you know, and, trying to trump up some sales if we can to pay for the thing. So,
there's definitely an appetite for it. Definitely an appetite.
Have we got an appetite for what? For doing more?
No, I was saying, there's definitely an appetite for what you and Terry have done, and hopefully will continue to do. So.
Yeah, we'll just have to see if we get the songs. I wouldn't like to put anything out that was a bit iffy, so, we've made a good impression with this one, and I don't want to kind of spoil the impression, so whatever we do, we've got to make darn sure that it's pretty half-decent,
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So, even if it's another EP, maybe we just haven't got the stamina to do a full LP or something. I don't know. I mean, the sort of people we work with, they've got a job to make it through dinner, let alone an LP.
Yeah, it's a bit like the station here, I think. Yeah. Right, I'm gonna throw you a final curveball question here, Colin, and it's about staining glass. Now, it's something that you used to do. Is it something you're still doing, or I remember reading years ago that you were a glass stainer.
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
And I used to do repairs on... People used to bring me church windows to repair. So, that's something I got into for a few years, It was around the late 80s. I don't know why. But I've always liked churches and stained glass and stuff.
Yeah.
So I got into that for a while. But, of course, you can only do it on a limited basis because you're busy making records with XTC,
Yeah.
So, I've still got my glass collection up in the loft, So
you actually did some staining on some church windows then, did they?
Well, it's not staining, it's kind of coloured glass that stained glass is pretty much half painted glass and half glass that is just inserted,
Right.
Coloured glass,
Yeah.
So I'm not a painter on glass, I'm actually a filler in of actually already coloured glass, So it's actually stained already. I don't do the staining, put it that way. No.
Quite right.
Yeah.
Colin, it's been absolutely brilliant speaking with you this evening. Thank you very much.
All right, my pleasure. My pleasure, Ian. Okay.
I really appreciate it. And
okay, then.
Good luck with the EP, and let's hope that there's something else from you guys further in the future.
Let's hope. Yes.
All right,
Ian.
Nice one. You take care.
Yeah, and you.
Cheerio.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye then.
Bye.